now like to go forward and start by introducing the panel and talk about this event. And I would like to start discussing or introducing Jagdish. Jagdish, me and Sonil got talking on this particular topic, and it was very, very interesting the way this whole event has transpired. So first introducing Jagdish, and we can spotlight Jagdish for that matter. All right, hi Jagdish, how are you doing?
Hi.
All right, I think I'm gonna, okay, we can actually spotlight everyone rather than, I'm gonna take a moment to spotlight every single person. Do we have, okay, we have everyone spotlighted. It's better this way. And let me first start with introducing Jagdish. Jagdish is the founder and president of Design Wolf, and he believes that great ideas can transform the world. Jagdish Chawla is the guy who walks in with the unusual, a breakthrough strategy, a new concept, a creative execution that impacts, if not changes, the design space he's working in with you. He's a highly strategic thinker, which makes him unique and has the ability to make teams participate and work together with the breakthrough results. And let me tell you, we've already seen that happening in the past two events which we've held with Jagdish. He connects the functions of communications across digital technologies into seamlessly integrated marketing, brand narrative. Brand narrative is a communication approach he uses that gives way to new concepts. It mines the richness of brand and generates new ideas to express it. As industry expert, Jagdish has, with over 27 years of endeavor in brand and product development, consumer engagement, marketing, and fashion merchandising, he has developed the skill, technology, and ability to build teams that deliver an authentic brand experience. Key values that drive him are passion, strategic thinking, innovation, and velocity. Welcome, Jagdish. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Gagan, for such a generous introduction. I'm really overwhelmed. And I hope I live up to your expectations today.
Absolutely. We have all the hopes, and I think people have got a lot of hopes for listening and being a part of some great event today. And I'm going to take this moment now to introduce our second speaker, Ravi. Ravi, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Nice to meet you, Gagan.
All right, wonderful. So let me introduce Ravi. Ravi Kallayil is the CEO of Plaeto, if I pronounce it right, a startup that he co-founded in Bangalore to create sustainable, accessible, and world-class footwear for Indian school children. Recently, Ravi relocated to Bangalore from Portland, US after a 15-year stint with Nike Inc., where he was the head of ideation in the global innovation team. Nike has been consistently judged as one of the most innovative companies in the world. Ravi has co-founded Nomafly, a Nike innovation accelerator startup that created the lowest carbon footprint shoe in the world. Amazing. Prior to this role, Ravi has held a number of leadership positions as head of operations for Nike India, business head of the Nike Cricket, and program director for Nike Africa, all startup operations within Nike. Ravi has consulting experience in companies such as Apple, Seagrams, etc. in the US, and e-com business technologies as well. Ravi has also worked with Hindustan Unilever in sales and distribution, 6Dimension in operations, a Silicon Valley energy startup, and BSA Cycles in manufacturing. Ravi is an alumnus of the Wharton School, IIM Bangalore, and College of Engineering, Trivandrum. For the past many years, Ravi has been associated with Maya Organic and Ananya Trust, organizations that work on women and child issues. Ravi's other interests include Buddhist meditation, scuba diving, and cycling. Welcome, Ravi. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Gagan. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Super. Thank you so much. And of course, it is my pleasure to also welcome Rajiv. Hi, Rajiv. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Rajiv. And let me take this moment to also introduce Rajiv. So Rajiv Rai Sachadev is a techno-innovator entrepreneur, has made several promotional and education films on socially relevant issues, worked with various handloom and textile clusters to uplift their technical skills for betterment of their economic conditions and adopting sustainable practices since the year 2000. RPS having inherent knack of R&D and analytical aptitude, analyzed that the concept of garmenting was evolved to safeguard and protect a human body, but the garments with which we wear these days are processed from highly toxic and hazardous synthetic dyes and chemicals. And Ravi has actually been working in this very, very extensively. He started through R&D in technical collaborations with IIT Delhi and developed truly the most sustainable, disruptive, internationally patented green textiles, bioprocessing, and 100% herbal dyeing technology to produce all kinds of technical textiles and garments with comprehensive hygiene, skin fortifying, and wellness properties using modern biotechnology interventions and bioengineering naturals. Wonderful, isn't that amazing? RPS company has also developed host of the products such as 100% herbal skin fortifiers, sanitizers, and surface disinfectants. Wonderful. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us here, Ravi.
Thanks a lot. I'm Rajiv, not to worry. So thanks a lot for your generous, kind words.
Wonderful.
I'm overwhelmed to be here on this platform, sharing with you guys.
Super. Thank you so much. And of course, last but not the least, Sonal Jain. Sonal is the founder of Sotex, the idea which started way early in 2018 and started taking shape in how we can bring the community together. And now you see it has evolved into such moments whereby not only the community is together, the buying and sourcing and the supplying is together. We are also day by day engaging and adding a lot of value. And Sonal was a thought behind it. Sonal was a mind behind it. And there you go, Sonal. Thank you so much for initiating and starting this. We are absolutely delighted that we have you with this thought. And now today we are doing one more such event on Sotex Connect. Welcome, Sonal.
Thank you so much, Gagan. Thank you to all the panelists, all the esteemed panelists to have you here with us in Sotex Connect. And thank you, Gagan, for such a generous introduction for me as well as for all the panelists. We look forward to have an enticing session with everyone.
Absolutely. Now, what I would like to do is I would like you all to start the session, and I would actually request Sonal and Jagdish to first take up the first part of the session. And of course, I know that the program has a lot to store and a lot to unfold. So over to you, Jagdish and Sonal, to take the conversation forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure to have such a brilliant minds in our session today. And it's an absolute pleasure to understand what's happening across in the industry. So just to put up the context on today's session, what we are looking at it is the days of COVID. COVID where there was a peak, the off peak, and the things are opening up. And during the COVID, what we have seen is a lot of innovation. Talk about sustainability, community awareness, and what we have been able to stitch together is a community together on the digital platform so that people can come together and learn about what is happening in the global area. And nevertheless, what we have with us is one of the best minds who is from one of the most innovative textile companies in the world, Nike. So it's a pleasure to have Ravi in the room. I want to just start off with putting up the concept of innovation. And let's start off by putting up the question directly to Jagdish to open up the session. And let's hear from him as to what innovation means for fashion and textile businesses and what he has to share. What is your role? What is that you think should be the right way of perceiving innovation in our textile industry?
Yeah, Sonal, as you rightly said, the initiative you have taken of, digitally putting everyone together. And your question is that how is it that what is the role innovation plays in textile and fashion? To me, whether it's textile, fashion, or any aspect of our life, innovation is something that is almost there with us every time. We innovate every minute. We innovate things that we want to improvise on. And in fashion, and especially in the way we work today in this environment, to us, innovation has become a very, very important and necessary component. And the bad news is that 96% of innovations fail, right? And the statistics says that 96% of innovation fails, which results in only 4% of people who innovate succeed. And if I have to quote some numbers from studies done by as renowned person as Peter Drucker himself, out of 500 patents which were registered in his time frame, long time back, only one out of those 500 actually resulted in revenues which justified the cost. So this is all very, very bad news, what I'm trying to talk to you about innovation. And why is it that it is more important for us to look at innovation through a different lens? And today, the whole subject that I'm bringing together is to put forth these 7 practices. And I am really, really delighted to have Ravi and Rajiv, 2 eminent people, to be part of this panel with me. And we would certainly have this very interaction and very conversational approach to this whole 7 different practices that I have put together, which has been one of my initiatives when we are building certain tools for the fashion industry in collaboration with Tukatech. So let me just elaborate this a little bit more before I jump into these 7 practices. If you see innovation, and when I say only 4% success, that means 96% failure. And if you examine that 4%, portion of that, large portion of it comes from people who are at the right place at the right time, and it just clicks for them, and they're lucky. The second part of it is there are people who are geniuses, like, the way, Thomas Edison created energy and light. And for them, it was also sheer hard work, but it was also their ingenious way of doing things. So that 4% still has these 2 components, which can bring in success. So there is a very little percentage of people who fall outside of that lucky and people having the right grit and the gift from the gap. I'm going to talk about that small portion and what is it that they do differently in these 7 practices. Because like any other sphere of life, when we look at, we have in an organization a process-driven approach, and there is the other approach which is most of the time absent as organizations, because there is a practice of doing something right, which is many times a miss. And these 7 practices is what we are going to discuss today and deliberate about, where we don't fall into the luck factor or grit or a gift factor, but it is a sheer also not the process, because process is a very automatic way of doing things. And let me elaborate a bit on that. What you mean by automatic way of doing things is that when we say that we are process driven, we actually start working in a very, very automatic manner. So there is no innovation possible in that, because we have to do A and then we have to do B and then we have to do C. And that is what is written in our SOP, and we have to follow that. So where does innovation come in? And when we were designing these 7 foundations, we thought that how is it that we actually bring forth this whole issue of why there is lack of practices? If you have to read Daniel Kahneman, who is one of my favorite authors of late, I've been reading a lot from him. He gave a very simple illustration in a class where he said that almost 50% of Harvard students fail to answer this question. And I will just put forth this question right now. He said, this video has gone viral, and many of you would have already, I'm sure, experienced it in one point or other on your WhatsApp messages. He said that, the question was put forth to these students saying that a bat and a ball costs $1.10. What if the bat is $1 more than the ball? So what is the price of the ball? Obviously, if you intuitively look at this equation, if bat and a ball is equivalent to $1.10, intuitively most of the people answered 10 cents. Am I right? And obviously the answer is wrong, because if you add 10 cents to the $1.10, which it is $1.20, so the answer is wrong. So this is the automatic way of behavior, and there is nothing wrong in that. And what do the other people do when they are not depending on their automatic behavior and making these bad judgments is basically putting a practice which is actually going counter to the automatic way of working on a process, which is a practice. And what are these 7 practices? Today we are going to have this interaction with Ravi and Rajiv. And these 7 practices, I have also put them together in a free ebook, which we will share by end of this workshop so that you all don't run away. And you don't have to worry about what these 7 practices are. I will just name them. The first practice is sensing. And it's a very commonsensical word, sensing, or how you sense your environment. We have envisioning, we have generating, adoption, curation, rendering, and storytelling. Don't worry about these words. They mean nothing, but they mean everything to us in this conversation today. When I say sensing, actually, what made me, have Ravi in this panel was, his passion for doing something. And I would request Ravi to actually jump in this conversation. Sorry, Rajiv. I'm sorry, Gagan has made this Ravi Rajiv for us to be interchangeable. Rajiv ji, if you can, elaborate about this whole sensing word that we are putting as a practice and what it means to you.
Thanks a lot, Jagdish. I come from a media background, and unfortunately, my father, who was a leading lawyer of Delhi, he suffered his first paralytic stroke in 1997. At that point of time, I was based out of Mumbai, trying my luck in Bollywood. So I have to relocate back to Delhi because being the only son, I had to take care of him. I interacted with some of the top doctors, holistic therapists of the world, that what could be the logical reason behind my father's deteriorating health, whereas he came from a, rural background. He was a workaholic. He used to work 9 to 9, pure vegetarian, non-drinker. Everybody has only one answer. The answer was either it could be lifestyle habits or eating habits. But I couldn't relate with it. And somehow during that time, coming from a media background, I chanced upon this concept of Ayurveda. Having a knack for doing R&D and, justifying the things which I come across in my life. When I chanced upon this concept, I understood that we have a written history of dying since last 5,000 years old. And it is only in 1856 we started using chemical dyes. And the garments which were evolved to safeguard our human body, they are processed from highly toxic chemicals and hazardous chemicals, which can ruin even the immune system of Mother Earth. Then how much harm they might be doing to our bodies. Being a non-doctor, non-technical person, but I got deeper into this subject. And during the same time, I chanced upon another article that Ayurveda and herbal goes global. I realized that there is a commercial potential to it also. So I developed this concept wherein a garment is made without using any toxic hazardous chemicals processed from herbs, which are known for their medicinal properties. And this is how I was introduced to this concept. And gradually, then I tied up with IIT Delhi. I got my company incubated in IIT Delhi, and I was there in IIT for 39 months, working with some of the top textile technologies from textile technology department of IIT Delhi. And now I have developed, which I believe could be a very disruptive technology. We have developed a herbal decoction, which is a combination of various herbs, mixture of various herbs, to provide excellent hygiene function in all kinds of textiles. We have tested almost every textile which we currently have here in India in some of the best, companies of India, tested as per international standards, having excellent antiviral, antimicrobial, antifungal, anti-odor, UV resistant, and mosquito repellent properties. Again, which can be incorporated in all kinds of textiles, all kinds of surfaces, irrespective of substrate, whether it is wood or any other steel or any other substrate for that matter. And with excellent hygiene function, which is truly, truly sustainable.
Amazing. So a beautiful inspiration to transform the world. And when you see something happening inside your own family and then you want to now make a change, I think this is what sensing is all about, to be sensitive and be empathic, have an empathy towards what is happening to the world outside. And if you actually look at most of the brilliant problems in the world have been solved, there is a story behind it. And more and more, if you get sensitive to those kinds of stories as an innovator, you're building a new muscle, you're building a new signal in your mind that is going to help you from time to time to be more sensitive to things that can happen to what is happening in the world out there. At our Design Wolf, when we have these programs where we have young designers coming in, moment they start the program, they start jumping into creating a great looking product. And once they go through this whole process of sensing, they realize that there is nothing, there is more meaning to what you're doing, and that meaning has to be understood and first sensed and felt. And moment they start doing it with their feeling, the outcome is completely different. And you also see this, and I'm going to talk about Ravi a bit before I allow him to speak. The passion with which he has worked on this project, because I have been interacting with him for quite some time about this new innovation concept he had, not just when he came back to India, but even before that. There would be always an expression of a delight when he talks about something like this, and it is something that is very close to Ravi's heart, and I would like him to spell out the beans more than me talking about how sensing is an inbuilt thing with Ravi, and how he has been able to work around the problem that he's solving to create something extraordinary in this world. Ravi, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jagdish. So basically, we just started this company called Plato out of Bangalore to make world-class footwear for Indian kids, but do it with a sense of responsibility towards the planet as well. As you put out product, we want to put out the product which harm the product the least, the world the least. Now, I just want to kind of step back and just go down about a year ago when I was still in Nike. I was the head of ideation at Nike. Just to give you a sense of what the job was, as a large company, you're always concerned about how do you remain number one in the world. Nike had remained number one for like 40 years. So they're constantly looking behind them to see what is going to disrupt the brand. And so I was one of the guys trying to figure out what would footwear look like in 5 years from now or 10 years from now. How do you make shoes at that time? What changes are happening around the world which would lead to an impact on Nike as a company or consumers of Nike, which will change the fortunes of Nike. So this is in some sense what Jagdish called sensing. You're looking at the world around and then trying to figure out what can make an impact on the company or what kind of work you do. But this whole thing around why I did what I'm doing now is related to something. It was related to my first two jobs. My first one was with a manufacturing company in Chennai making BSA bicycles. So I would work in night shifts and have dinner with workers in the line. And then after that, I ended up working for Unilever selling cosmetics in Bihar and Orissa and small towns there. I was the head of sales for Unilever in the Lakme division. So that was one extreme. And what that experience taught me was this sense of aspiration among the Indian population. you've got to see it to believe it. A lot of times we live in large cities and we don't kind of experience that. I'm myself a product of that aspiration that my parents had, that ended up going through Ivy League schools and that kind of stuff. But what I realized was women in, for example, Sasaram in Bihar, who were buying lipsticks, were buying with a sense of aspiration to make themselves feel good and feel confident. A worker in Chennai who would send his daughter to an engineering college was doing it for the same reason. So this left a lot of deep imprint on me, and it kind of stayed with me as I kind of went through my journey in my career. And then on the other extreme, I ended up with Nike, trying to build the most innovative company in the world, trying to push human capability to beyond its limits, in sport and athletics. And we were trying to make the best products for some of the best athletes in the world. So somewhere along the way, I wanted to take these lessons from Nike and apply it to the context I grew up in India, where people aspired for more and they wanted to make an impact. So this question came: why can't we offer world-class footwear to Indian kids who aspire for more, but do it in a way that the product is really accessible? The question that comes is, can Nike do this? But a lot of times, large companies have other priorities, so they never get down to making shoes for kids in places like India. So that's what brought me back. And in this process of doing my work in Nike, I realized the damage that the apparel and the footwear industry particularly was causing to the environment, in terms of, for example, some of the materials used in footwear would lie. If you test it inside, if you just put it in a landfill, it can survive there for 1,000 years. So that's like 10 generations. So we're doing an enormous amount of damage to the planet. So as I kind of set this company up, the thought that came to us was, can we do it in a way that damages the planet a little less than what otherwise we would have done if we were not thinking about it? So that was the inspiration behind why we started this company, and we can talk about it a little more later.
Amazing journey and amazing thought, and the action to come back to India and start from scratch. This is a huge inspiration for everybody.
So it's just an absolute delight, just to add up to what Jagdish just mentioned, and hearing about the story of Ravi coming back from Nike and just opening up a new dimension of the ecosystem. So what we have in us in the room, before we just start off with these 7 areas of innovation, what we have with us in the room is, one side we have the design part, which is an area which is core to Jagdish, and then we have the product innovation part, which is core to Ravi, where he's worked with one of the biggest companies in the apparel side, Nike. And then we have Rajiv, who is now working towards the sustainability side, where how we can get on to products where the finishes and the chemicals, whatever we use, the kind of finishing we use, how we make it more organic and make it more sustainable so that it doesn't takes away from the body. So it's an ideal combination what we have in the room. And now when we open up the innovation area, and we look at the innovation from 3 different dimensions, from the design part, from the strategic part, and then the breakthrough innovation part, as to what is going to be box 1 now and which is going to be box 3, maybe out of in the future, and what is that we can eliminate as part of box 3. As we go along, what can we leave, and we make sure that we don't take it forward from our old lessons. And I want Jagdish to just give us now final insight as to how we take this as a part of the step journey going forward in our industry.
Yeah, so the industry of fashion and apparel, if you just zoom out and see in last 10, 20 years, how many innovations have really happened that are really a breakthrough to talk about?
Yeah.
And especially I'm talking about India. I was very fortunate for 3 years to be with a group in Sri Lanka, where I got to actually travel and visit and see what is happening in the same space of digital fashion technology when it comes to bringing out solutions which are breakthrough in its nature. I was lucky to be part of one group in Sri Lanka, where we were very early to actually use a lot of technology. And the reason why that could be made possible was government was giving grants to these organizations who were wanting to come out and become number one in the world, and they were giving them subsidies and encouragements to do a tax holiday, kind of an incentive. And what I saw in Sri Lanka was that textile and garment manufacturing was looked through from the lens of how to make it faster, better, cheaper. And better was the more important thing than faster and cheaper. Because when you say better in fashion, there was one aspect which differentiates from rest of the products that are available in the market and to what is available as extraordinary product is the fit of the garment. And this is where we actually improvise using technology to improve the fit and to reduce iterations, where you can directly focus on the market segment whom you're catering to and creating fits that are appropriate for that particular market. And digital 3D, 2D were the CAD was approached towards it, while India, we were still looking at doing the whole thing in a very traditional manner. And these were the breakthroughs that we got. Like in Bangladesh, if you need 20 people to spread a fabric on the table before it is cut. With our spreaders, we could just do it with 2 people with higher precision. When it comes to optimizing the consumption of a particular fabric which is utilized, we had a software which had an algorithm was equivalent to 5 big pattern masters sitting together for 8 hours, cracking their head to come out with the best optimized solution in few minutes. These are the innovations that we were we were able to experience doing that there. And I thought this was a big opportunity to bring that kind of a technology in India, where I can bring technology as an aid towards design and innovation. And what is innovation? Innovation is making something available to the consumer at a much better, much richer, and much different experience, which is actually what they really want than what they are having it today. And that is where we are looking at innovation in a very broad spectrum today. And coming to your question, how our Indian industry can adapt this innovation, it has to be with your mindset. That's why I said sensing. And my next important step to that is what I call envisioning, because you have to have the vision and you have to articulate that vision with a narrative. For example, let me give you a small example of what happened to Starbucks and why Starbucks is today rated as the most experiential coffee seller in the world. And in India also, if you see, Starbucks experience is 10 times bigger than any other coffee seller and who are trying to imitate Starbucks. But that experience is par excellence. If you look at what happened in the mind of the founder, he was not a founder, he was an employee before. If you look at the history of Starbucks, and he traveled to France and other European countries, and he was sitting and understanding what is it that is missing in his coffee selling. And he said, I'm not in the business of selling coffee. I'm in the business of creating a space in between your home and your work. That was his vision. Can there be a space which is in between your work and your home where you can have conversations which are casual, which are easygoing and not as serious as going for work, not as casual as going to your home? And he could articulate that idea sitting in those cafes in the Europe where there were open air cafes. And then he thought, why not I conceptualize this? That is what I mean by envisioning. And that is the second area which I am looking at, Ravi and Rajiv, to add value to. What is it that you think is envisioning in your own businesses? And how should other, garment manufacturers or textile manufacturers should envision their vision of what they want to do 5 years from now? because the technology today we have, and if we continue to go the way we go, I don't think there is much left, because the market share is getting consumed by these other invaders. And what is it that we are doing to transform our own businesses in terms of innovation? So that's the question I have for Ravi and Rajiv to address to this audience.
Okay, I'll go first, Rajiv, if you don't mind.
Please carry on.
So, as a part of this exercise, while we call ourselves a shoe company, we met over 200 kids and 200 parents to talk about what kids want for footwear. And in the process, we were talking to them, what do you really want for the child? And every time the conversation went deeper and deeper, it ended up with this one word: I want my child to be happy. So we asked, hey, what makes your child happy? And a lot of them would say that play makes him happy or her happy. So then, you realize that footwear is such an integral part of play that, as we were building our vision for the company, we said we're not in the business of making footwear. We are trying to bring the joy of play to every Indian child. And footwear is just an instrument to make that happen. Now it's no longer about, trying to make the best footwear in the world. It's trying to change somebody's life. And then you realize that the company is a completely different thing. So while we make the best product that can enable play, we're also looking at, hey, how can we interact with schools to bring more activity into the lives of children? How can we kind of empower PE teachers to make that PT period, which is now in every school, an integral part of the curriculum, but it's like most kids don't do anything during it. Can you make that half an hour the most joyful time of their life? And shoe is just an instrument to make that happen. Then you redefine your company in completely different terms. And then also we looked at saying that when we create this product, children are the future of this planet, and we've got to leave it a better place than what we got in our hands. So that is one more vision that is driving us, in the sense that, everything we do, we look at it from the lens of sustainability, saying that, hey, are we, making this place a little worse? So can you make this product with a little less material? Can you make it with more sustainable material? Can you engineer it in such a way that you take weight out of the product? Because that's the biggest measure of sustainability. So things like that come in, and it's no longer about, making a shoe that makes 60 points of margin. That will come on its own if you kind of meet or run towards this vision that we set ourselves up to achieve.
Amazing. Amazing. The idea is to reduce the elements on the shoe so that it is more sustainable.
I think,
and
Rajiv, now we're looking at your thoughts.
Sorry? Sorry, Sunil, I didn't get you.
No, please go on. I'm just missed out. Go ahead, Mr. Rubish.
Yeah. So the narrative here, if I have to say that what is his vision, is to create a shoe that is going to make this kid happy. And I know the amount of pain Ravi is taking on his product development, right from choosing the colors that the kids really want, not the parents who want them to wear that. And the amount of time he's taking to examine each and every substance that is going into the shoe and how it is sustainable. Absolutely, it is not only making him happy for the moment in which he is wearing the shoe with very, very little parts to it, but also making a shoe sustainable that he's going to remain happier year after. Hopefully, sustainability drive from all businesses happen, that we live in a planet which is happier after. So this is a great story, and moment you have these kinds of illustrations that we bring into our way of doing something, and have a practice of creating and finding those stories behind, it brings in a lot of empowerment. And that's where my next practice that I'm talking about is generating. And when I say generating, I mean, generating in the sense that if you have a great product, which you feel is a great product, is it just your opinion or it is a fact that has been generated out of testing it out? And the word here, which I learned from Ravi, is prototyping. And Ravi would explain to you more about this.
A lot of times, especially in the fashion industry, what happens is we make a product, we make a forecast and put it out, and then realize that 50% of it sells, and the other 50% has to be heavily discounted. A lot of times, all the things we can't sell ends up in Africa somewhere where they don't even use it and just goes in trash here. In fact, I was looking at a picture somewhere in Ivory Coast where there's mounds and mounds of garments coming in from the US that didn't get sold. So this is an interesting problem that we have to figure out as to what is going to sell. And a lot of times there is no logic or methodology to help us do that. So one of the things that I learned from a person in Google was this idea of prototyping, where when you before you create the product, create a prototype or a model of it, put it in front of people, get a sense of whether it is acceptable or not. People will give you signals, and that is fairly good enough if you go through 3 or 4 iterations of trials to tell you whether this process is going to succeed or not. The intent is, as Jagdish said, only 5% of any innovation succeed. You want to take that 5% to 50 or 60% because that is what determines whether you're successful as a business or not. And prototyping is a simple methodology by which you put some of your ideas or concepts before you make the prototype to get a sense of whether market is going to accept or not, or will they pay the price that you're trying to get. And it can be applied for very simple things. It can be applied for very, very complex things. You don't have to really build that to get a sense of whether the product is going to succeed. So from a sustainability point of view, this is a valuable tool that I've been trying to adopt in my own company, trying to get some signals from kids on whether like colors or not. It's too early stage to kind of say whether I'm successful or not. But the intent is that we will only produce what there is demand for. So you don't end up creating a huge amount of waste that you have to deal with later. So in some sense, that is what prototyping is, testing your product before you even make the sample for it.
So are we talking more towards from the demand-based manufacturing side of concept, where first you generate a demand, show it to the customers, and then probably look at manufacturing that, Ravi?
No, it's not basically. You will take a small set of people who are representative of your final end users, and then put this concept or a model in front of them, get them to, react to it. Okay. So, and then based on the reaction, you determine whether, hey, am I going to make this product? Will this succeed or not? So there is a very complex mathematical or probabilistic model which supports this called Bayes theorem, and I think Jagdish has worked on it to develop that. But Bayes theorem tells you very clearly if a product is going to succeed or not based on the responses you can get from the audience if you measure it probabilistically. So there is a science behind what we're doing. Yeah. So it is just a question of implementing it with a certain discipline.
So it was a very coincidental that I was developing my tool called Bespoken, and Ravi was stating the same, addressing the same issue. How do I test it out with kids? And I said, this is my tool. Why don't you try it? And when he used that intuitive tool, because it has to be done in a very intuitive manner to gain insight about what the customer is really asking and what they want. And we also back it up with who this customer is, who's giving this response, so that we distinguish an opinion from a fact. So basically, we are very poor in making our judgments. And if you go back to Daniel Kahneman, he talks about concept called noise. Most of the time, we don't take objective decisions because we are in love with that product. So one big component of noise is your bias, your own bias. And because I'm the founder and this is my idea, and I think this is the best, actually is a step towards the failure. And that's why 96% of the people fail, because they think their idea is great, but they need to understand that their idea is great only if there is a person who is willing to buy that product. And do you have sufficient data to prove that? And we actually, then I work more with Ravi and I put this base theorem into my swipe right, swipe left feature. And then we came out with a hypothesis that this product is going to fail. Let's start with that. So you're starting with a very, very pessimistic view that this product is going to not survive, and then you up your standards, and then you do experiments, not one experiment. What this theorem tells you to do is that there is a bell shape, and there are these extremes, and if you have to correct out the biases and noises from people who are evaluating it, you have to iterate it and go to the next level so that the luck factor comes out of it. Because the initial luck could be that people liked 5 out of 10 people like, so there's a 50% chance it is going to succeed. But that is only one experiment. Then you do the experiment with the next group, and then you validate. And this is a very scientifically designed algorithm which is used by technology today, by Google, even to put your spam mails into the spam box, because you're predicting basis certain facts, basis certain words people are using. So we are using the same logic in our tool, and that tool is what is experimented in this program of ours called cocooning, where we make these designers to go through this whole very intuitive way of doing it, but it shows them the mirror, because you can't be in love with your product and say that this product is going to sell. And that is what I mean by generating enough data, which is your own data versus an opinion or some other data given to you by some other software, where you have said that Zara is selling more of blue, so you should also sell blue, which is actually a disaster to me. Zara is selling blue for her own customer, for his own customer at his own price in his own environment, but that is not your data. Which blue of that Zara is going to work for you, you need to see it for yourself. Okay, you take that blue of Zara, and now you ask your customers whether they would like this blue. And that now today with technology can be done with very low cost, so that 1 out of 500 people who can justify the cost, now that cost component is come down to a very small fees that you pay when you buy a subscription called Bespoke. It is very insignificant, but the results are such authentic results that that remove all your biases and noise from what you do. So this is where generating is a very important tool, that very important practice, that having an open mind to say that I'm starting with the assumption that this is going to fail. It takes you courage to do that, because you are in love with your product and you have to be dispassionate as an innovator. And that is a practice that I'm talking about in this feature called generating. And this particular feature, if you look at Rajiv, the way he has done it, his mind and his problem and the problem of the world, there is an empathy. So there is absolutely no discord in that, right, Rajiv? When you say people are wearing toxic clothes.
Yeah, like Sonal asked, innovation in regard to India. My first and the foremost question is, are we really willing to adopt innovation here in India? In my personal experience, people in India, they are still very, very apprehensive about innovation. In my personal experience, when I filed first patents across globe in 2003, all my family said he has gone crazy. They discarded my entire effort. You are doing wrong. You are wasting your money, hard-earned money, and your resources. And even though when I had proven myself, yes, now even IIT Delhi has acknowledged this. Being a non-technologist myself, non-IITian, I was the first company who was incubated in IIT from a non-IITian background. So if they appreciated this idea, because I was maybe too early to talk about sustainability, to talk about hygiene and wellness in textiles, because at that point of time, it was a relatively new term. But despite the fact, 2003 onwards, I started seeing the emergence of organic farming. But in India, even the top companies, they ridicule the concept that who will certify? How come you guarantee assure that this is organic? So, first of all, if we are talking about innovating, we have to be very open to new innovations, new ideas. And yes, when we talk about new ideas, we have to do a thorough research globally, what is happening, whether we are on the track or we are off the track. And when we really talk about innovation, yes, we have to take inspiration from others. But it should not be copied. So I believe these are some of the, ingredients which are, core to innovation, which you have to understand. If you really want to innovate, you have to be open about it. And once you are open about it, innovation is nothing which can be taught to anybody or which is genetically inside you. It is only your perception about the life, the environment around you. You get to innovate. If I can innovate, I believe anybody can innovate.
So very brilliantly put up, Rajiv, in the sense it has to be innovative. When it has to be new, it has to be something different, and it has to make sense to the consumer at large. But where we are looking at it, the industry as a whole, and the area that especially that you are working in, and now what we see in the last 18 months, the importance of antimicrobial, antibacterial has never been before than what is importance is now. Because now that the end consumers are actually going out and they're looking out for products which are coming from this side, because now there is a social more awareness coming in. So I think where we feel, and I would like Ravi to give his input, because what we see is in terms of the innovations, we do come out with a lot of new ideas, a lot of interesting things that keep coming out from different mindsets across the world. But when it comes to commercialization of this, the consumer acceptance, and Ravi has a far more intelligence in this particular area. So Ravi, I want to have your thoughts as to what is the gap between the innovation and the final adoption? How do we bridge that gap? We have companies, even in fashion and textile, they keep innovating new products all the time. But 95%, and I would say 96% of the products don't even see the retail shelves. How do we bridge out that gap?
There are two ways of innovating. One is trying to understand what the consumer needs are and then trying to make it. A lot of times companies fail because they're not storytelling it in a right way that it has an impact on consumer lives. It has to solve some problem for them. What is it solving is a question that a lot of companies fail to answer. And that's why the consumers respond in the way they do. A lot of times, you come out with an innovation, you think it's great and sexy, but you put it out there, there's no response because it doesn't do anything for the consumer. And that is why this failure is there. But companies like Nike and Apple, they realize that consumers can only see that much. They can't see ahead of themselves beyond a certain point. They can't predict what's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years. And that is where I think you can also take the approach that, hey, I'm going to define what the world is going to look like in 5 years from now, and I'm going to create it. And that is where some of these most successful companies, like for example, when Apple created the iPhone, you couldn't have asked a consumer whether you needed an iPhone which will do all your banking work for you. He would not have been able to imagine that. So there is two ways. One, if you want really small incremental innovations, go to consumers and ask them for opinion. You can kind of make that impact. But there are also very disruptive ones where the consumer input will be very limited in applicability because they cannot envision it. So this is where while you say that, hey, there is only a 4% chance of success, a lot of times it is not being done in the right way. Either you define the market and then go build it yourself and you can see a lot more success, or you understand the consumer needs and build towards it. I think in a lot of cases, when you talk of this 96% failure rate, I would assume that people are not really looking at what problem it solves for the consumer. That is why such high failure rates.
If I were to ask you one core area, sorry, Rajiv, if I were to ask you one core area, something I'm sure, and this is an area which is most, important to most of the customers and the business owners here, is that most of them have their own manufacturing setup. In India being a market or Southeast Asia being a market which addresses the demand of their own customers, whether it is from the West, whether it is from the Western market. Now, when it comes to innovation side, how do they find their own innovation within their own business? Because even if it is a garment manufacturing or a fabric manufacturing or a trims manufacturing, how do they find innovation there? How is that problem? That is something which they can address, and something which how through a storytelling they should take it to their customers.
So, I'll just step back and then talk a couple of minutes on how we used to look at approaching innovation. So we would look at the big picture and look at, hey, what is happening in the world around? So, for example, the climate conversation is picking up speed among Gen Z. So what would be the impact of that on Nike in 5 years from now? So we would ask that question. We would say that, hey, there is this problem of people losing jobs in the US, and the politics in US is getting impacted by this discussion around how to bring jobs back to the US. So what would that impact be on supply chain, for example? So, or, a lot of these kids are, living with digital gadgets today. Now that is changing their expectation of how products should be delivered. It's almost like everything is instantaneous in this age of Instagram and Facebook. So what is the impact of that and their expectations with companies? So if you ask such broad questions, and then from that, emerges questions on what is the impact for a company like Nike. For instance, what happens if sustainability as a trend picks up? It essentially means that our product will have to be completely redesigned with sustainable materials. Or if responsiveness picks up, then our supply chains in China will not be able to meet the needs of a consumer in the US because they want the product instantaneously. So this is how we kind of realize that, hey, this is what's changing in the world. So if you're a small supplier to a large company, you've got to really take the same approach and find out as to what is keeping the people in the company awake. It could be sustainability, it could be responsiveness, it could be the nature of digital technologies. And you've got to run faster than them in that direction. So for example, if I take responsiveness as one problem, essentially what the companies are trying to solve is avoid the risk of taking inventory positions so that you really don't make too much product that you have to throw away. Now, if you are a supplier, can you help them be responsive through your own processes and the methods by which you make. For example, what he's going to come and ask you is that, hey, can you supply in smaller lot sizes but supply more frequently? A variety of products, but at the same cost. And if you're a trim supplier, how would you solve this problem? You would say that, hey, I can make grage and color it late, and so that you only need to buy it when you want it, and I can supply it. Or you say that, hey, my machine only runs at a certain speed and at a certain volume. There is a minimum order quantity. Can I bring that minimum order quantity down to what my customer requires? Which would mean that either you reduce the footprint of the machine, or you use lesser setup time somehow. So you'll have to change the machine configuration in some way to make that do. Or even more disruptive is, hey, why do you even need to use a trim? There is another technology that I can develop which will completely eliminate the trim, which is a problem for you. So there are multiple ways by which you can support large companies which are trying to innovate. And this is where your scope of innovation lies. Either you could change the material, the process, or the equipment, or completely throw away the material you make and provide something alternative which will solve the problem for the consumer. Trim is solving some problem, isn't it, for the company or for the consumer? So can you replace it with something that solves the problem, but it is not as complex as a trim as it exists today? So this is how you would ask a number of questions on what can I do to solve the problem for the customer, and then you will find that innovative ideas will come from within that. You will, when I said eliminating the trim itself, it brings a smile in a lot of faces, because this is almost like committing suicide. Why would you eliminate this product that I sell and make money? But this is how companies reinvent themselves, because you've got to be ready to throw away what brings you revenue today and completely move into another area if it is innovative. So that is what a lot of people hesitate to do, and that's what consumes them, and then ultimately companies die because of their inability to change. So that's why I suggested this. Say, look at how do you get rid of the same product that is feeding you today? So that could be a very disruptive way of thinking. So this is how I would say, as a supplier, I would think. I would look at get myself into the shoes of a customer and then look at what he or she is trying to solve.
Absolutely, that's a brilliant way of putting the things together. And as you rightly mentioned, now as a supplier, there are a couple of things where people can look out to, whether it is a trims or the minimums, or inability to just present their inventory, or maybe dispose of their inventory. Rajiv, you were just starting up some points here, and sorry I cut you in middle. So
thank you.
Yeah.
I was just adding to what Ravi said. Yes, storytelling is the key aspect of getting your innovation successfully accepted in the market. So unless and until your target audience cannot relate with why he should purchase your product, so that why has to be clarified to him in his or her own language. So you have to convey that properly to your target audience. Over to you now.
I am now, from both the conversation, I go back and look back to my own story, as a manufacturer back in my early days. So I could see that there was a lot of things where, we were not able to solve and understand the mindset of a buyer. The gap between, sometimes the big order is too big, sometimes the order is too small, sometimes there is a capacity issue, sometimes we have the stock issue, sometimes the designing is an issue. And then how do we present to the people? Digitalization was one of the areas which I could foresee as, as a company, which can evolve from being purely from a conventional side of presenting to an end customer, to a digital way of presenting. as to how you can reach out and make it more, presentable yourself, and not only to few customers, but to a lot more customers in different geographies. And that's where, combining the strengths of not only your as a company, but also an ecosystem or the cluster that you belong to, how you can present yourself as a cluster, because within a cluster you have too many manufacturers having all of them may have their own USP of doing something different and unique, presenting with the colors, with the designs, with the silhouettes. So that can be one of the strengths of coming in together and presenting it digitally. And that was, I think, one of the best example has been given by Jagdish. So Jagdish, just to add up to what you had mentioned up earlier in terms of the fits, and that was one of the key area which you just mentioned about what you are doing in that particular area with Tukatech. And just to share, what was your experience when you started working on the fit side?
Yeah, so basically, there are layers and layers of issues that happen when you conceive a product and then when you are trying to finally make it available to the end consumer. So in the whole process, what happens is there is an iteration of this product. So what the designer has conceived, when she sees it as a first proto sample, there are high likely chances that she will say, this is not what I had thought, and what has come out is this. And that dissonance is causing all the iteration, because at the first stage of concept itself there is a dissonance. Then the is in a fit sample, and then you create a pre-production sample, and then there is a gold seal sample. So how do you now disrupt this whole responsiveness question? What Ravi is trying to answer using technology is, if you can start with this vision of this customer and first of this designer, and first convert it into a 3D instead of first making it into a 2D and make a proto sample, because then the lead time is almost 6 to 8 months for the sample to actually come to a level that it is being visualized by this designer the way she had thought about it. So with technology now we are able to put those elements together, and even if I have a fabric which is having a different weight, and if I want to change its drape, I'm able to visualize it in a simulated manner. If I have a fabric which is little heavier, how it will show on the same dress that has been conceived by a designer, I can show it to her if you change the fabric to chiffon, and how it will drape on that body, and when she walks, we actually simulate the walk and how it is going to behave as a drape. So we have come to the level of fine-tuning this at the conceptual level itself, that now you have already corrected your fabrication, because you thought that chiffon will work in a particular way, but it is not. And now we have a 4-way stretch fabric which is going to behave very differently. And you don't really need to have this kind of a stiffness in the fabric. That gets solved by visualizing it using the 3D way of presenting it. Now the second stage of difficulty is, after I have made that visual image on a 3D, how is this 3D equivalent to a fit samples challenges? Because your 3D and the fit sample is not matching. So today we are looking at a new way of developing that. In fact, yesterday Ram and us, we had a call on this, and we had fit sample agencies to come together, where if there is a known fit sampler who is known for a particular fit, we can take their 52 points of data and convert it into a digital fit model as a data point. And using technology like, the NFTs of the world today, blockchain, where that can be patented by that fit model, and that becomes a revenue stream for that particular fit model to give it to the brands like ours, where we don't have to break our head and have this dissonance being solved. So these are the new innovations that are happening, and they are possible only because we have stepped out of the 2D way of doing it to the 3D way of doing it, now using it to simulate the real environment. Future is going to be metaverses, and you're going to see the brands selling that merchandise digitally. So umpteen number of possibilities happen if you have that open mind. But India is still, 3 steps behind to accept that. Even NFT today, world has gone far away, and they are investing in NFTs, and we are still debating and thinking about it whether we should invest. So it's time for us to wake up and bring those awareness into us and see how innovation is so important today. And with digital transformation, if we are not matching up to that, we are going to be only left behind. Vietnam has taken over. They are creating sustainable fabrics which are beautiful in its drapes.
Absolutely.
So Vietnam can do it. Why can't we do that? Yeah. So that's the question I have.
So one very important area just you highlighted was digital representation of the garments, and how you eliminate the process in between, where you start picking up the designs using technology, create the image of the garment and presenting to the customer, and then backtracking it. So that was also one of the tool that we are also working with Tukatek on this very closely. But that's a very important landscape innovation. I'm not sure whether Ravi knows about it, which is what we are doing it in the apparel industry currently. But I'm sure something like this would have been possible in the footwear also, to know the things. So Jagdish, before we get the sessions opened up for the questions from the attendees, I want you to just sum up with the rest of the brief points that you have put in for the innovation.
Yeah, so exactly the challenge is, after I had said about generation, is the adoption, and adoption is your belief system. And adoption happens at 3 stages. It happens in your mind first, then it happens with your board of stakeholders who are going to decide that whether we should innovate or not. And that belief system has to be, told in a way that it has its own understanding. So that is the second stage of adoption. And the third stage of adoption is how is it percolating in the mind of the consumer, right?
Absolutely.
So that's my fourth distinction, which I talked about in these uh, seven practices. The adoption is the most important thing. That's what even Ravi was trying to say when he said that his shoe has to be worn by those people, and then there is to be that idea of removing the trims and that whole challenge of thinking, can we remove the trim? So those are the belief systems that we have to challenge ourselves from to wake up to the new reality, and anything is possible today. Coming to adoption is very closely related to curation, and this is a very close subject to my heart, which is another feature of an innovator. He is able to put the whole story together and curate it in a way that the consumer is able to understand it. Like Ravi said that many times Nike made the iPhone, but he need not go to a customer to ask him whether you would like to have a phone which is going to do your banking. He will not understand it. But same Steve Jobs, when he had to sell his iPod, what he did in his presentation was he just made a very, very beautiful statement. He said, can you imagine having 1 million songs in your pocket? And he sold iPod. Today, that iPod is a small element of an iPhone, right? But he had to do that. He had to change those beliefs of those people and make them adopt that whole idea. And then he had to curate it in a way that that story actually gets sold before they can even imagine, yeah, actually I want something like this. And that picturization happened by just saying a simple word, 1 million songs in your pocket. So that's the whole beauty of storytelling and the rendering of that story. And this is a very interesting ebook I have prepared with some question answers, a very interactive way of. I have done my own storytelling in this ebook. I'm sure we are going to share that link with you all. It's a free ebook you all can download. But start thinking on these 7 practices, and if you can build them into your system, build them into your organization, this is a great starting point.
So I think the team has already shared that book in the chat box for all the people that they can download and take it forward to. So can we open up the questions for everyone now? Jagdish, are we ready or?
Yes,
Yeah.
all
So,
yours.
okay, let's take it on with. I have one which is from anonymous attendee, and there was a big question. Let me try reading out the entire set of words. I'm from a footwear industry, and but of the fashion, dresses, casuals, and the idea of testing waters, we have been trying doing some since some. We are in exports where we are doing sustainable solutions in the production as well as in the components used, but we are facing major political issues like selling prices and volumes. It is a big challenge to get the right sustainable material in the decent price and also the low quantities, as even though there is much of a noise on sustainability, but while the buying from the companies, the price had to change to offer a better price and a decent volumes, as getting sustainable volumes or low in the low volumes in a big challenge. I myself are too much in favor of sustainability and eco-friendly products. Years back, even I got the component manufacturers to, some of them use components, but accepting small quantities, small volumes, this may not succeed with much an R&D being looked into this. How this can be made in the practical terms without making much of an impact?
So there are two things that we are talking about. One, we are talking about volumes, and second, we are talking about price, right? So it's always the case. There is no less known fact that every merchant wants to buy a product which is cheaper and it is of smaller volume because he wants to cut down his risk on volume and he wants to buy it cheaper. And these are two things which are basically contradicting each other. So if you increase the volume, your price comes down. If you increase the volume, then there is a more risk to sell and you are oversupplying. But look at it from a very different point of view. If you are making a sustainable product, you are selling it to whom? And that's a very important question. Because if you're going to sell the same sustainable product to the same customer who's going to buy a item of apparel at the price of a coffee, then we are going to do more harm even with sustainable products because we are going to oversupply the market.
Mm.
So the whole slow fashion is an attitude change that has to be experienced. And believe me, when you're saying the price is going up, I have got use cases and I can show you sample sets where the price of the sustainable fabric, which has been converted using a your water bottle recycled, is
Pet
just one or
bottles, yeah.
two rupees more than the normal price. And there are factories who are making it. Question is, do we have the belief to invest in those kinds of projects? Once we invest in those kinds of projects, automatically the price is going to come down.
I hope that answers the question for the person who has posted this question. There is another question from Kayati Arora. How does the concept apply to the fashion manufacturers?
The concept of seven practices for the fashion manufacturers is absolutely the same because these are universal principles. When you say that you are sensing as the fashion, how are you sensing your fashion? What is your sensibility of fashion? For example, when we used to do buying and merchandising and we used to have a designers coming to us, we would say that give us a WGSN trend forecast and we will create your three theme boards. And each and every designer will have a WGSN Western concept theme board and they will be almost looking alike. When you say sensing is, if WGSN is giving this direction, what is it that is going to be relevant to my customer? Am I going to use the same color with the WGSN is asking us to use? Yeah, maybe it will work. And what is the probability and likelihood that that color will work? And that is where I'm saying that we will use our prototyping technique of saying, what is my data? What does my data say? This is WGSN's data. What is your own data? And this is where we are saying these practices are very relevant for fashion trend forecasting, high-end fashion, even on the low-end fashion. And each of these practices, if you examine, they are all universal principles based on that. Whether storytelling or it is rendering a particular garment in a particular way using technology. So this 3D is a fashion garment because you're putting in and draping these particular things using technology of seeing that particular element of fashion, how it is going to show. So absolutely, you're right. This is a fashion. It is relevant, but it is also universal, to answer your question.
I think one important point is you made here is the importance of data collection. Because that is something where, there is a gap between a smaller companies and the bigger companies. The bigger companies rely too much of their data from their customers. And when they are innovating the products, they go back and see what is moving, what is not moving, whether it is the colors, the silhouettes, the pilots, or, the merchandise, what is not moving. And that is where the small manufacturers or the medium-sized manufacturers, they are kind of a step behind, because once you start capturing their data, what was getting sold last year, what out of your 50 styles that you sold, what was selling fast. Now that is applying to everyone. I just saw a message being posted by by Mr. Mohit Hora. As a button manufacturer, it is frightening and you need to change fast. And, just going back to your point of data, and if I refer it back to Mohit, question, don't get afraid about, of a change. Rather, start accepting the change. And what Mr. Jagdish has rightly said is, if you start putting everything together as a part of the data collection points, you will, within your business model, you will see where the uniqueness is coming in. What is that you can offer it to the customers? What is that the customer is liking? Forget what is happening at the world stage. Of course, once you scale up and when you become a bigger player and you go to international borders and you're selling in different countries, that's when you will have WGSN and pop fashion and those kind of important elements to be putting in. But if the uniqueness point is the data collection can be put in digitally, that can, I think, solve a lot of innovation challenges for the businesses. But do you want to add anything on that side?
Yeah, I think you well said that. See, the conflict is not that you're a bigger organization, so you have richer data. There are use cases of smaller organizations. We used to have a brand who was a very city-centric brand, Bombay-based brand making women's jeans. His product would just fly off the shelves. And he had the recipe, and he was a very small guy. But moment he starts becoming big, so what happens is, statistically, as your numbers go up, your probability of success also comes down. That is a very statistical phenomena. Now, how do you look at that and now speculate your product being used by which customer at a larger group? So let's say he was a small brand of 50, 100 crore before. Now he's become a 300 crore brand just because he added Flipkart and Amazon. For him to become 1,000 crore is where there is a challenge. And that is where he has to use the tools of big data to now segment this market, because his recipe is great, but his customer is not fragmented. And how does he reach to those fragmented markets with the same recipe that works for those customers also, is where he has to use the big data to reach them out.
Ravi, I want you to add up the point of data as to how does your experience of working with Nike, and you also made a very important point that you used to envision 5 years and 10 years of your journey, and that's where the innovation was coming in faster. How did you, how did Nike, what is the secret recipe why Nike remains to stay at the top of the game?
For those kind of durations, data doesn't help, because it's going to be completely flawed if you look at data for 5 years out, 10 years out. It's almost certain that you're looking at the wrong data, because things change almost on a daily basis. So that is where we believe that in our industry, we have to create the future ourselves. So we've put in a lot of effort to understand where is this world headed to, and then what can we define the world of footwear to be. So it could be a bunch of things we try, 9 out of 10 things will not make it to the market. But the one thing that makes it will be a huge success because we have defined it the way we want it. It, it's almost like venture capital investing. 9 out of 10 companies you invest will not make money, but one which does really is a huge success. It's the same in innovation too. So it looks like a big success because we have in some sense defined what the parameters for success are. And that is where I think some of these larger companies and some of these more successful companies come out as great innovators because they're defining the future of their industry on their own.
Rajiv, would you like to add up here something from your points on sustainability?
Yes, sustainability is the need of the hour, and it is going to stay here in the textile. Rather, what I believe, personally believe, I believe it is much later than expected. Now people, I have anticipated but somehow it got delayed, and now this corona thing has forced us to adopt sustainability, rather think on sustainable solutions in textiles also. I am not sure how people will react maybe after a year or two, but I firmly believe yes, sustainability is going to stay here in textile industry and to the benefit of the entire humankind, the mother nature.
You?
Yes, please.
So thank you for sharing that, Rajiv. And I totally understand sustainability is becoming the need of the hour. And that's where importance is being perceived at every level, especially in the fashion and textile industry. Let me just continue to take up some more questions quickly. Madhu Senan has put in that it is not just the trims that affect the fancy colored leathers, which very well few of our clients opted for. So the manufacturers do not want to get stuck with the old stock. Lining, even the textile components are not possible in low quantities. There is many challenges till we can have a decent volume and prices. I think, Jagdish, would you like to add up to the answer here?
No, I'm completely in agreement with the challenges that we have today with the existing products that we are trying to market to the industry. With the demand having dipped, your MOQs are going to be a struggle all the time. What I'm saying is it's not going to solve your existing problem. If you want to innovate, you have to come out of the box and not follow a process and look at MOQ as the only way that is going to, or reduce price is the only way that is going to help you sustain. The sustainability itself has got a new dimension to it today. Things like demand manufacturing. These are the new disruptions that are happening in the market. We have a brand in US who has disrupted this whole idea of inventory management. What he's doing is he has put up his own website, and it has taken him some time to do that. And he has a very fixed niche product of creating t-shirts for cyclists. It's a very super specialized product. Now, what he does is he has already done the prototype, he has got the fit, everything has been done, and the inventory is now lying in the fabric form. He has not even dyed them, as what Ravi was earlier mentioning about the Dell kind of a process that you can do. He has gone a step ahead and he starts putting the images and prints using Tuka software as a 3D garment. And every day, by end of the day, he gets 500 orders. And in the night, they start processing the order. By next day, the production starts. And by the afternoon, the shipment happens.
Wow.
So he's not even made a sample. He's not even made a sample to put it on the website. It is a 3D sample on the website. That is the description that he has done. So innovation is all about thinking outside the way the constraints that we are having today and solve that constraint problem for tomorrow. Because MOQ, it's a dirty word. Today, no brand wants an MOQ. They are saying with Amazon kind of a catalog, the tail is becoming longer. Your quantities have to come down. That is what the market is wanting because customer is getting 1 million styles on his phone. You can't make 300 pieces. You can't make 3,000 pieces of that style because he is used to seeing more number of styles. So how are you going to have a breakthrough in that? Because the market has shifted. It is all small quantities now. So the moment you start innovating is when you will realize that there is a scope to create a new dimension to the way you're doing your regular way of doing business. And that is what these practices are all about.
I just want to add one thing in the sense that what Jagdish was talking about in that example, you have to rethink the product. If you look at dyed fabric and then cutting and stitching in the way it was done earlier, that's not innovation any longer. You've got to look at, hey, can I take something that is undyed? I want to put color on it. What is the best way to put color? The assumption is that the consumer will not see the difference between the way you've created it earlier and how you're doing it. Or even if he does, he probably is not going to care about it. So you've got to rethink the way a garment is made today if you have to kind of be responsive at that rates at which, Jagdish was talking about. So that is where, you have to completely throw away your existing models of manufacturing, existing models of designing, and then rethink everything.
No, absolutely. That is quite right. And we totally agree to the fact. But if I were to just come and just had a small opinion from Rajiv, especially when it comes to, adding some processes to it, whether it is antimicrobial, antibacterial, how does that work for a smaller quantities? Rajiv, have you worked out on that matrix at your end when you want to offer it to a small set of manufacturer or maybe just a demand-based manufacturing cycle? You're on mute, Rajiv. Rajiv, can you unmute yourself, please? Yeah.
Yes, considering this, we are already coming up with a very innovative solution. We are coming up with a small laundry setup where even if you wish to, get your entire wardrobe processed with this hygiene function incorporated in your textiles, your existing wardrobe,
Wow.
we will be able to do that. And for the small, designers also, and even I am planning to introduce this herbal dyeing concept to this small time laundry setups.
Wonderful.
So wherein the quantities will not be a challenge. Even if you wish to, dye or process 5 kgs or 10 kgs of textile products, maybe garments or home furnishing products or any kind of textile products, you will be able to do that.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing, and we look forward to having that information soon. Let me just quickly take on some 3 more questions that have come in. One is from Sudhir Grover, and it's a very different question. What steps government needs to take to get prices of sustainable fabrics under control? Moment we say sustainable and GOTS and certification prices are high and we are not competitive.
It's a genuine concern. Completely empathize with him, and government policies have to change. And I'm sure there is work going on in that, but it's a very slow process. World has gone very fast. Fabrics outside India are available at a very affordable price, even if they have gone through the sustainability process. So if it is happening outside, yes, we need to examine that. And there is a possibility to innovate there. Even policy change is an innovation, right?
Just another question from Sudhir Grover. How do we handle the issues of disposal of sustainable clothes which are made in a sustainable way? But USA adds to the sea, affecting the marine health of these species. Customers are also, they should be sensitive to ensure their main goals. Ravi, is there anything that Nike is doing in this particular direction?
One of the things that that worries companies like Nike is the used clothes market or used shoes market, which is picking up in places like Europe and US. One is largely because I'm kind of answering it in a different way, where we are realizing that, or at least during the time when I was there, one is that people's incomes are not rising as much as the cost of material or cost of garments and shoes. So many of these kids are now relying on buying used clothes. Now that's a market that large companies are completely outside. They're not involved in it. So this is something that is developing in markets like US and Europe, and the consumers themselves are not involving them, getting into this act of buying new products. So there was this phrase around the consumer or consumption in that question. And this is where we are beginning to see that consumption is being defined in a completely different way by the consumer themselves. They're not buying new, they're buying used clothes. And that can be a scary prospect for companies and suppliers, because there's nothing to supply for used clothes. So this is one trend that we picked up, and it's scaring a lot of companies in this space now.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and I'm sure there is a lot of innovation in that particular area, which needs to see the light of the day. Okay, I think we are almost towards the end of the questions. There are a couple of follow-up statements which have been shared by Madhu. Particularly, let me just still go and read out. One cannot invest and be the best sustainable till the time the market is there. Our experience is a lot on the accolades from a lot of big and small customers who talk so much about sustainability besides the accolades and not just the political benefits. Some brands definitely work on it, but all manufacturers cannot be their suppliers, and for sustainability show the real benefits worldwide, overall change is much more required. I totally understand with that, Madhuji, and we together as a community, we have a sense of responsibility. But what I see, and as an important topic, that once we get the minds together, like the ones we have today in our forum, and we are happy to discuss from the three different dimensions, from the design to the product to the consumer, and then the component of sustainability, which is as to how we look at future, and especially with the COVID just being into a back of our mind. How do we make sure that tomorrow, if there is no such viruses, or if there are viruses, which we have a kind of coming adopted to these kind of environments also, how do we kind of bulletproof ourselves, not completely 100%, but at least what we can do to ensure that these things can be avoided. And of course, in a sustainable way, the way Rajiv is working on it very closely with the herbal solutions, not putting too much of chemicals and anything. And if that can be added up to the laundry, then it is like in your daily wash itself, you are getting getting the right kind of product lines coming in. So you get away from a lot of those kind of viruses. I mean, not 100%, but still you are able to do a lot in that particular area. I hope we had a great conversation happening here. Jagdish, you want to add up anything here?
No, it was a interesting interaction, and I learned a lot today. And thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. And we are open to this. Our cocooning program is all about this, and we are encouraging people to come out with their ideas, and we are cocooning them into that process of, encouraging them to look at these kinds of solutions, because it has to start somewhere. Though there is a bigger problem of policy, and there is a bigger problem of resistance, and there is, MOQ problem and pricing problem, but it has to begin somewhere. It has to start with our mind. And with that, I would just leave with you all with this query and what these 7 practices are, and just reflect on them. Maybe something is up there for you. Who knows?
No, absolutely. That's a great takeaway for everyone in the room, for all the people who have been here and attended to it from a very different mindset altogether. And I'm sure with digitization coming in, a lot will change. A lot has changed in the last 18 months, I would say. Whatever we could not have discovered in terms of the innovation happening globally, a lot of people have become sensitive towards the learning side of it. And that's what is being small initiative through the Sotex Connect. We were trying to bring out these issues once the consumer and the industry both becomes aware of how to start looking at the problem statements. I'm sure the solutioning will start coming out from such conversations. And there is a great way of doing things. And as Jagdish mentioned out, there is a program which they are doing on the cocooning, where they're kind of, helping the business entrepreneurs to rediscover their business models internally, so that they can work on their design process and the development process, and of course how to adopt to the technology. That's a great work going out. So Gagan, I think we are towards almost the end. So can we have a quick closing statements from all the panelists together?
What I would like to say, first of all, is, thank you so much for giving this kind of a time to the entire process. I was listening, and I saw the conversations actually got very, very intense, and it was wonderful to bring that value out for the listeners. Thank you so much. It's almost 2 hours, by the way, that we've been here. We've been all sitting here, and this is just amazing. Thank you so much, first of all. And the messages what I've been seeing on the chat, and what we have been seeing onto our own groups, community groups, is just tremendous. The kind of value which has come out, and the questions coming in, and the questions now come, and some of the messages coming on the chat, it is evident that you've actually sparked a lot of debate within their minds of the people that something needs to be done around this. It's already high time, and we need to go forward with it. It's so amazing that ways. I would say just one thing I've done, in case some of you actually messaged and you want to wish to connect with any of the consultants, I've posted a link on the chat box. You can fill that link, and you can connect with them, and we will of course help you connect. And before we actually close, and I would request one last closing statement from everyone. I would like to only request all of you that next week we again have a very, very amazing session from Arup Majumdar, as I mentioned earlier. It's again on business transformation. He is a renowned business consultant. So come over and listen to that as well. And we will be, of course, sending you more information. I will start in the reverse order with Rajiv by last closing statement from you, and then go to Ravi and then Jagdish. Rajiv, I hope this session was fruitful for you, as of course adding so much value to the whole thing. Yeah.
Certainly enjoyed your company, and it was a very good learning session for me as well. And especially, listening to Ravi, what Ravi shared about his experiences. And, I would like to sum up here. Ravi, we can add value to your shoes also. We can add hygiene function to your shoes also. And with Jagdish, we have spoken so much. So we keep sharing our ideas. And it was nice talking to you, both of you. Thanks, Sonal. Thanks, Gagan. So anyway, we'll be in touch with you guys. Thank you.
Wonderful, Ravi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rajiv.
Ravi, what do you have to say with the closing?
First is, I think given this topic around innovation, what I found that the companies which think innovatively are the ones which will finally survive. So I think it's in the interest of everyone to kind of keep aside certain mind space to think
differently and creatively and innovatively if you were to really build your business for the future. So I'll leave it with that.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much,
Jagdish,
Ravi.
over to you with your closing statement.
Yeah, just a thank you to all of you for, making this happen. Thank you, Ravi, and thank you, Rajiv, for, volunteering to come over on my small request. It has been a great beginning for us to start igniting innovation. And I'm really excited about this as an ongoing initiative from my side, and I'm ready to be of help to anybody on this regard. This is a subject which is very close to my heart, and that's what keeps me young. Thank you so much for this. Thank you, Sonal, for organizing this. And Gagan, you've been really high energy, as I always say that. And keep this up. This is a great initiative. So Tex is doing good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jagdish. And with this, I would like to thank each one of you who've been listening for the past 2 hours for being here today. And I hope that we've been able to add value to your thoughts. And of course, we will be the book which was shared. We will also email some of you. Some of you could not download it on your phone, as you mentioned. We will email this book, ebook to you as well. And feel free to connect with us in case you want to connect with any of the consultants here. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Sonal, last words, and then we go forward.
No, I would say thank you so much. And it was brilliant talking to such amazing minds. And it's been just an honor. It's an absolute honor for us to have you all in the conversation. And we look forward to such amazing conversations in near future also. So just to sum up the entire thing from the SOTEX point also, while we are looking into sustainability, so that's our core area, digitization, digital, ecosystem and sustainable practices within the ecosystem. That's our core area. And these are the 2 important areas that we want to take it forward. Of course, with the innovation being the heart of it. So anyone looking to have to contribute in this particular area, we would love to have your views and your insights. Feel free to come and share with us on SOTEX, and we would like to have or invite you on the SOTEX panel to come and share your views. Thank you to all our esteemed panelists for today, and thank you for sharing a valuable time with us today evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye, and see you next week with another
Thank you.
session.
Good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Yeah.